The following podcast contains spoilers for The Pledge. You have been warned!
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of KFR News Radio. This is your host, Glen Button, along with your host, Miguel Magusto.
That is me, that is I, that is Irene, and myself. Not in that order.
Yeah, Jim Carrey's punching the air somewhere.
Yeah. Yes, he is. How you doing, Glenn?
I am not too shabby.
Yes.
I might have just done my taxes on the day before tax day, but that's hearsay. That is hearsay.
You know, that's 2 weeks ago for this audience here.
Yeah.
So, or 3 weeks ago. So, I just got back from Iceland. I'm tired. My arms are tired from flapping.
Yeah.
Just kidding. We're recording this before I went to Iceland, so I have no idea.
Course.
No idea how tired I will be from flapping my wings.
Probably just a little tired.
Just a little tired. I'm sorry. I'm a dad. I'm obligated to make that joke. So
you've got the certification.
I do.
Certification is the weirdest way I've ever heard pronounced that, but here we are.
Yes, but when people do listen to this, the Stoneys will have come out.
Yes.
So I really hope people enjoyed that. Lots of everything and everywhere.
I mean, crowds have been flocking for that for the longest time.
They
crowds,
have.
Dozens of them.
It has been 30 views by me, and then the rest, the million other ones.
The other 10
people.
by me, and then 2 more by everyone else. It's perfect. I love the algorithm.
If I'm honest, I make those for me. I don't really care if people watch them. I hope people watch them, but I don't really care.
For us, damn it. For us.
For us, because they're funny. And I don't care what anyone says. But anyway.
And we're funny.
It's been a while since we recorded the podcast. So, Glenn.
Yeah.
I know you're going to disappoint me. How many movies have you watched in the 3 weeks it's been since we recorded the podcast?
It's so weird to think that it's been 3 weeks because it does not feel like that at all.
Yeah.
But I've at least watched 3 movies. I'll give you that. The 3 of which we've seen pretty much together. So let's get into that. We watched Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves a wee little bit ago. There was a YouTube video out for that little bad boy, and who knows? Maybe we liked it. Maybe we rolled that D20 and got a high-ass score.
Yeah.
But let's move on. The one movie that I didn't see with you, or did we had to talk about in any way, but kind of we had to talk about in some sort of way. It had to get scored eventually. For the Stoneys. I watched Till, which had been on my list, but of course I'm really shitty at watching movies lately because I'm poopy. Dear God. Danielle Deadwyler's amazing in this.
She is.
And it is super kind of traumatic. That I was not expecting them to show Emmett Till's body in it. I was just kind of fully expecting it to just be in the background and just be like, oh, this is what happened. And then they showed it, and I was like, oh.
I mean, that was... I get what you're saying, but that was kind of the whole point.
Oh, 100%.
Like she purposefully wanted the picture of his body.
Well, to be fair, I didn't know any of the backstory, the real events. I didn't know almost anything. So
if you didn't know that, I could see you being shocked by that.
So little shock value is when they actually. I thought the movie was going to just kind of play it safe and be like, oh yeah, the body, the feet, and here's the feet of the body, but we're not actually going to show what happened. And then boom, it showed. I was like, oh
yeah,
that's a leap, and I liked that. But since it followed the actual events, I mean, it makes super sense that they did show it.
Yeah.
And it's fucking crazy that the bill for lynching, obviously for not lynching, was just passed last year.
Yeah, it's fucking disgusting. This country and its need for freedom, despite doing what is right, is fucking obnoxious as shit. I hate it. I want to move.
It was
someone.
Traumatic movie, really great performances. And on a slightly happier note, we watched the Super Mario Brothers movie.
Yeah!
Yes, not the one with Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo, but the new one. And was it good? I don't know. I hit that power up button. There's a YouTube out there somewhere with a video for us reviewing it. After that, we watched Renfield, which has just literally happened pretty much the week we were recording this. And then, of course, we watched The Pledge, which we shall get into in a moment. Mike, spit it, Daddy.
Yes. Well, I'm going to try to do this as fast as I possibly can, because I watched 19 movies, which, is pretty on par. It's not high or low. Some of them rewatches, you'll see in just a minute. The first one I watched, as many people who listen to this know, I have my Ingmar Bergman collection I'm trying to get through this year.
How many do you have left?
I think I'm halfway now.
Not bad.
I think between 2020 and now I've watched 20, and I think there's 40, 41 in the collection.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure, but I'm pretty close to halfway. But yeah, they're every time I watch it, I'm reminded why I had to stop in 2020, because of course I started in January 2020, and then the pandemic happened. And anyone who knows Ingmar Bergman, his movies are usually pretty depressing. Yeah. And when there's a global pandemic and also a horrible election going on at the same time in the country, you don't really want to be depressed. I watched more dumb shit in 2020 than I did in probably the previous 5 years. Obviously, like, by the time October hit, I realized I could do a movie a day. But like, I just pumped out all the movies that I really didn't care about, that were just mindless, possible fun. But yeah, anyway, I don't know why I'm talking about 2020, but I watched The Silence. It's a movie about estranged sisters going to a hotel in a country that is on the verge of war, and there's a lot of tension, and one of the sisters is dying, and it's very interesting and sad. Yeah. Typical Ingmar Bergman, and I don't mean that in a bad way. Then we watched Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. We have a review for that up on YouTube. Then I watched The Virgin Spring, which is another Ingmar Bergman film. For those of you who are unaware or are aware of Last House on the Left, both of those are based on the same Swedish play from like the 14 or 1500s, or story or poem or whatever. There was this play written in Sweden that long ago. This was based on it, so was Last House on the Left, the Wes Craven film. So anyone who has seen either of those knows what they're in for, and it is depressing. I don't know why I said it like that.
Gotta add some flair to it.
Yes. Then with my baby child, I watched The Lion King 1.5, because, he loves Pumbaa and Timon, and that is a Timon and Pumbaa movie if I've ever seen one. Then I watched a movie called Our Friend with Jason Segel and Casey Affleck and Dakota Johnson.
Okay.
And it's based on a true story. Casey Affleck and Dakota Johnson are married. She gets cancer, and their friend, played by Jason Segel, just like goes above and beyond to help them out. Lives with them for like 6 or 7 months. So it's about that. Based on a true story. Really, really liked it way more than I thought it would. The poster sucks, so I was kind of judging what I would think of it based on the poster. Yeah. But it's a really well made, feel good movie that is also realistic, because a woman has cancer and everything, so it does have the struggles, but it reminds you of friendship and life and all that. So it's really surprisingly well made. Then, with my favorite child, I watched The Lion King 2, Simba's Pride, the 1998 sequel. 1.5 is technically the third one in the franchise.
Wow.
Lion King 2, Simba's Pride.
So this is one I had told you that you should probably watch because it was kind of nostalgic. I don't think I told you it was good, but I think I told you it was nostalgic.
Apparently, I remembered stuff from it, so I think I did watch it. But it's definitely the worst one in the series. Yeah. But it's fine. It's what you expect from a Disney straight-to-video release. Yeah. Then I
never watched 1.5.
It was 1.5 is funny. It's essentially just like a clip show showing the events of the first one, but from Timon and Pumbaa's standpoint, which is arguably the more important story.
Of course.
Then we watched the Super Mario Brothers movie, did a review for that. You can check that out on YouTube. The next day, I watched Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves again because I wanted to. My mom, who is a teacher's aide, was on spring break, so she got to watch my boy. And I got to have a day going to see that. Then me and my uncle, who was in town, for those of you who don't know, my uncle is the one who, when we saw A Man Called Ove and he saw something tragic happen in that movie, he went, "Whoa!" in the middle of the theater.
That's all he's known for now. That's it.
Yeah, it is all he's known for. We went to the Bryn Mawr Film Institute, which he loves to go to because he loves their popcorn. And
they've got great popcorn.
They do. Since the first time we've been there, he's asked me to take him every time he's visited from California. But we went and saw The Quiet Girl, which was a rewatch for me. Highly recommend that movie. And then we watched a film called 1001, which I believe was in Sundance this year or the year before. I can't remember. It's essentially about this mother and son in, I want to say, Harlem or Hell's Kitchen. Those two things might be the same thing. I don't know. I'm not from New York, but
they're close to each other.
They're close to each other. I believe it is Harlem, but it could have also been Hell's Kitchen because I remember them saying that at one point. But so it's essentially like she gets out of prison, kidnaps him from a foster home because she was court ordered to stay away. And then there's more to it that I will not get into because it's a spoiler. Yeah. But it's a solid movie for the most part. Kind of weak in some aspects, but for a low budget independent film, I really enjoyed it for what it was, and it tells a great story.
Not bad.
Yes. Then the Ingmar Bergman film continued my collection. I continued the collection, and I rewatched The Seventh Seal. For those of you who are aware, this is the Ingmar Bergman movie where a Crusades knight plays chess with death on a beach. And so this, I haven't watched this. This is known as like one of the most existential like dramas that he's ever made. And there are elements of that, but this was a lot funnier than I remembered it being.
Interesting.
And I was surprised at how funny it was because there is a lot of humor. Yes, there is that existential dread and everything as well, but there's way more humor than I remembered there being. So it was really cool to see that. Then I watched a Polish film that was for the 1001 Movies You Must See Before You Die called Man of Marble. That is a Polish film about a documentary film student who is making her thesis film on a man who was like a propaganda icon for the Soviet Union, I want to say, back in the 40s and 50s or something like that. And he went missing, and it's kind of her fault trying to find him and everything, see what happened to him because he became a revolutionary afterwards as well. So yeah, pretty interesting. Then I saw a movie that you and I were about to review back in 2020, but then theaters decided to close again.
And we had a whole thing planned out for it and everything.
Yeah, we did, and I shot it, and it has some of the best special effects I've ever done. Like I added meteorites. It's Greenland, for those of you who don't know, the Gerard Butler asteroid meteorite comet movie, whatever you want to call it. I added meteorites to the atmosphere that I was looking at across the lake, and like it didn't look 100% real, but like for me who has no special effects or visual effects experience, it looked pretty fucking good, if I do say so myself. And anyway, so I watched that. It's it's your typical disaster film. There were moments that were like really powerful, which was unexpected, but overall it's just okay. But I do, if you're a fan of disaster films like I am, I do suggest people check it out. Then with my baby child, I watched the rewatch, The Croods, the Nick Cage, Emma Stone, Ryan Reynolds, caveman cartoon.
We were just talking about that the other day.
Yeah, because you were watching a clip from the second one. But yeah, it's better than what you would think it would be. Yeah, there you go.
I haven't fully watched it in absolute years.
Yeah, it's fine. Then I watched a film called But I'm a Cheerleader, which has Natasha Lyonne, I think her name is. Yeah, Natasha Lyonne. It's from 1999, so it's relatively old. I didn't even know she was acting back then. But it's about this cheerleader who is a closeted lesbian, and her parents send her to a God, what are those terrible places?
Fuck.
Like a camp to try to turn her straight. I forget what they're called, and I'm glad I forget what they're called because that means they're not really around. Well, they're probably still around, but they're fucking horrible. But they send her to one of those camps to turn her straight, and she goes into the camp being like, I'm not lesbian, and not having really explored being a lesbian. Just happens to have pictures of attractive women in her locker, and her boyfriend's also a horrible kisser, and that's how they think she's a lesbian because she doesn't want to be kissed by a horrible kisser. And she kind of discovers that she might be a lesbian, and it's very, very good. I had a lot of fun watching it. It's a funny movie. RuPaul is in it. He plays one of the counselors who's trying to teach all the gay boys how to be straight. And it's just really funny seeing RuPaul in that.
I just saw a clip with him and Jimmy Fallon when he's this is the first time a drag queen is playing in a role like this, and he's like, drag queen, and Jimmy Fallon has this fucking existential crisis. He's like, oh no, my life is flashing before, and he's like, I'm the drag queen.
Yeah, I remember that. But it was really funny seeing him. I'm pretty sure him is his pronoun, so if that's incorrect, I apologize. But yeah, he was really funny. Natasha Lyonne was funny in that. And also Rufio from Hook is in it too for a minute.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah. And I had a lot of fun watching it. I highly suggest people check it out. Then I rewatched my film Banshee because I had to make sure that it was good to go for the festivals it's going to be in coming up.
Yeah.
Then we watched Renfield. We have a review for that. We're not going to get into it. We have a review for that, so you can check it out on YouTube. Then I watched the mini-series. I'm hoping it just stays a mini-series. Beef, the A24 mini-series with Stephen Yeun and Ali Wong. Really well done. I liked it for the most part. There are a few parts that I thought were lazy, but that's just my personal preference. And pretty much, without going too much into it, there is an affair as a subplot in this. To me, affairs are a cheap and lazy way to create conflict. Yes, they're realistic because people do cheat on each other, but it just came off as for something that was so creative and new and different.
Yeah,
this person having an affair, I was like, oh, you're really gonna dumb it down that way. Oh. Yeah, so I was a little disappointed in that, but other than that, I loved it. It's a fantastic show. Highly suggest people check it out. And then I watched The Pledge, which we'll get into right now.
Body of a young girl has just been found.
She was a second grader. I guess that put her about 7.5, 8.
Who did this?
We intend to find out.
Do you promise me that you will?
Yes, Mrs. Larson, I promise.
Sherry, for Christ's sake, you're retiring.
Well, I'm trying to fit all the pieces together, fill in the gaps. You did have a daughter that went missing 3 years ago, didn't you?
Thought you were supposed to be fishing.
Need more time on this.
No offense, but you're retired. You don't work here anymore.
Jimmy drew a picture of a giant.
She called him the wizard. He was as big as a mountain.
I have reason to believe that she was meeting with this man seen here, and you see this big black car?
Come on, Jerry. You gotta start getting on with your life.
I made a promise, Eric. You're old enough to remember when that meant something.
A retiring police detective pledges to catch the killer of a young child. I believe I said this last time, but I love how succinct that is.
Short and sweet, baby.
Short and sweet. Directed by Sean Penn, written by Friedrich Dürrenmatt, Jerzy Kromolowski, and Mary Olsen Kromolowski. Is starring Jack Nicholson, Benicio del Toro, Patricia Clarkson, Bo Daniels, Aaron Eckhart, Adrian Dorval, Costas Mandalore. Helen Mirren's in there for a single scene, I believe.
Pretty much. Mickey Rourke's in there.
Robin Wright's in there. Mickey Rourke. A lot of people, you could tell this was made by an actor because he called in a lot of favors. Sam Shepard's in there for a minute. Harry Dean Stanton's in there for a minute. a lot of big names are in there for a single scene and then peace out.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this was on my massive list of movies that I make Glenn pick a number and then it comes up with that. This is the one that came up. It's one of that list is mostly rewatches for me because it's a lot of movies that I want to rewatch, and most of them you haven't seen.
Yeah.
But this was one of the rare ones that I hadn't seen, and pretty much only wanted to see it because of Jack Nicholson. Love Jack Nicholson.
He's great.
He is great. I've been missing him lately because he retired from film in 2009 or 10. Whenever the Bucket List came out.
Yeah, Bucket List was one of the last ones.
Yeah, that was the last one. And I gotta say, like, I like the story. I like his performance in this. But I feel like it is slow moving in a bad way. It's slow moving and meandering and doesn't really stick to one idea. And I think it is also a victim of poor editing, which, you know, that's not to knock the editor. Every editor has one miscue, and it depends on who they're working with and everything.
It's also 2001 editing too, so there was a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, a lot of slow motion with things that weren't shot for slow motion. And,
a lot of snap zooms.
Yeah, snap zooms. So it's just bad.
There's
bad
a lot to unpack from this movie.
Yeah.
Pretty much right from the beginning, you're introduced to the story that is pretty much kind of regular in most movies, but, you know, it set the groundwork for, you know, who he is, what he's about, what his life's going through, him retiring. Of course, there's this case that happens as he's retiring, and you're like, he's like, fuck retiring. We're going to figure this shit out.
Yeah.
And pretty much they, air quotes, solve it right off the bat. But he knows for a fact they didn't. So it sets the groundwork. I think it did it pretty nice. There's a couple things that, like, I was like, like at first I didn't even know that was Benicio as Toby, the guy they brought in. I was like, oh, he looks familiar. And then they actually, like, showed his face. I'm like, the fuck is Benicio doing as a Native American? Holy shit.
Yeah, he's a great actor. He, like, just disappears into roles.
But he was great. And then, like, they do that whole little act right there, and then they kind of move on from it. And then it's setting more groundwork for him, like, not getting over this case, and that he doesn't think it's done, that guy's still out there. That it wasn't Benicio, and, like, you really, to me, I was, like, really kind of liking that. I was liking that he was still trying to figure shit out. I was liking that he's digging further into all of it. But at a certain point, you just kind of stop liking his character, and that was my biggest flaw.
Yeah.
Or one of my biggest flaws. There's two really big flaws, but that was my big one, is that you really liked him, and then at a certain point, which I've got a very specific point, I'll let us talk a little bit more before we get there, is, like, just the breaking point. I'm like, fuck this guy. I was really enjoying this man until that happened. Not fair, not fun. But yeah, I was on board for it for a little bit. I think it was about the hour mark is when it actually hit that part. So, like, I was like, yeah, okay, this is enjoyable enough. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah.
I didn't even know Mickey Rourke was in this fucking movie. Like, I saw the scene, but was this before his plastic surgeries and all that?
I don't know, because I know he had, like, got his face beat up in boxing.
Oh.
And then that's why he got the plastic surgeries.
I understand.
At the very least, he's a solid, 15 years younger than he. Oh, maybe not 15. Maybe it's only 10. Judging by how he aged between this and The Wrestler, I'm gonna say yes, he probably did get,
yes,
some kind of cosmetic surgery between now and then, or then in 2000 and 2009, I think The Wrestler came out.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna let you talk a little bit because I kind of just ran that.
No, it's quite all right, my friend. But yeah, I kind of agree. You kind of feel like at the midpoint is really when I stopped caring, because it seems like he stopped caring. And I don't know. The whole film just kind of has a corny setup. It opens, the very, very first scene is also the very last scene as well.
Yeah.
You see him kind of ranting and mumbling to yourself, and then it shows you how he got to that point. And then it cuts to him fishing, and then he drives from the mountains to the desert. I believe he says that they're in Carson City or whatever in Nevada. And he takes his fish with him to work. It's just a whole weird, corny setup that, yes, it shows who he is very quickly, and also like that he's kind of on the end of his career and everything, so he's focusing more on fishing than he is actual work. But I don't know. It's a mixture of the editing and the music. It's just a cacophony of the worst part of early 2000s films.
Yeah.
And I don't know. The whole film was just weird tonally to me. It had a lot of really great moments. I thought Benicio del Toro was great.
Yeah.
The pretty much where I lost interest, and I hate to say it, is when the mother of the girl that was murdered makes him make the pledge. Because that was kind of hokey. It was like, swear on this cross that my daughter made.
That's the thing that I haven't watched that many Sean Penn movies, but we've watched a few. You've made me watch Mystic River. Did he make that, or was he just in it?
He's just in it. Clint Eastwood made that.
Well, what's funny is that I feel that came after this, I think, right?
Yeah, 2 years after.
What's funny is the films that it feels like he's in and the films that he makes, they feel... This is so hard to sound nice. They feel like all like kind of American in a way, like an American like story, and like and then it adds like an Irish flair. I don't know how to explain it correctly.
I got you. It's
Irish
all...
with the drinking, American with the, you swear on this Bible, these kids, you got to watch out for these kids. We're protecting these kids. I'm a cop, Yeah,
it feels very, and I'm not trying to be political about this, feels very thin blue line.
Yes.
Where it's like, cops can do no wrong, and like it's very forgiving of Aaron Eckhart's character in this, who is a shitty cop.
Yeah.
He's the shittiest cop I've ever seen in cinema. And that includes Detroit, where...
That's a pretty shitty cop.
Yeah, that's a pretty shitty cop. But, like, at least... I don't know. I take that back. In Detroit, he's
no
much
defending
shittier.
that, yeah.
I was thinking more of, like, how they handled the situation, and then I remembered that
he was made...
killing of an unarmed
that character
black
was
man.
made to be shitty because...
Yeah.
That was based off a true story, but that guy was shitty. This guy... I don't think this was based off a real thing. Like, he's just... shitty pretending to be a good cop, basically.
Yes, so I think what I was trying to say is that Detroit is shitty in a realistic way. Mm-hmm. Whereas this feels like Hollywood shitty cop, where it's just like he's trying to do the best, but he just uses the wrong means. Like the confession that Benicio del Toro has would not hold up in court, because anyone who watches the security footage from that will see how he was manipulated to see it. It's so obvious, even without Jack Nicholson pointing it out. You don't need Jack Nicholson pointing out how shitty that whole interrogation was, because anyone with a brain would be like, he is obviously leading a mentally challenged person to make a confession. That it's black and white in that. It's not even like a gray area. It's black and white. Mm-hmm. And I feel like despite that, the film is very forgiving. It's like, oh, this is just how cops are. No!
Well, especially since Jack Nicholson's character is the only one that's really pushing to be like, this is kind of bullshit.
Yeah. If Jack Nicholson had like one other ally, or even the police chief.
Yeah, the police chief.
Even if the police chief just went like, hey, we have to just close it for quota number, because that's a lot of the reasons cases get solved way too quickly and incorrectly is because they have like quotas to hit, which is just dumb that cops have quotas. It makes them look for crimes that haven't happened. So it's just I don't know. Yeah, it's very. I do agree. His style is very American. Like Into the Wild is like the hippie American, which again, that's based on a true story, and I love that film. I'm not knocking that film, but he is very just like he is a less obnoxious Clint Eastwood, and I'm talking about like Clint Eastwood's patriotic films, not so much like the ones that are just like, we have these brave heroes playing themselves in this movie about these soldiers who stopped a terrorist on a train. And again, not knocking those soldiers. They obviously did a very brave thing. But how about you stop jerking it on the flag? I'm pretty sure that's against the flag code.
Jerking it on the flag.
Yeah.
So my biggest turn away from this, like the breaking point on this, was when... You know, he's trying to still hunt this guy down, but at a certain point, he's kind of slowing it down. He buys like a fish shop, but it all feels like formulated. Like he's planning to do all this. Like he's buying this fish shop to look for this guy. Yeah. At the same time, he's probably doing it for himself, but it felt like he was doing it to look for this guy. And then like he kind of koozies into this woman and her daughter. It's a broken family, so it's just those two and the ex-husband somewhere. And then he's helping them out. The ex-husband pops up, but she's domestic abuse. He's like, yeah, stay at our place, or stay at my place. I got plenty of rooms, don't know what to do with them. Kind of koozies into their relationship. And then, you know, the chick is like, she gets attracted to him because he's really good to the kid. And like, you're like, oh, that's a little gross, but, you know, I get it.
And he's like
whatever.
40 years older. I'm pretty sure Robin Wright was still married to Sean Penn at that point.
Yep. And I was like, oh, that's a little gross, but I guess I could forgive it, and I don't want to. But then it became that it felt like he was just using the kid. Like he didn't actually care about the kid. He was just using the kid. Yeah. And that was disgusting to me. Maybe it was meant to be like that, obviously.
I mean,
but
it is. It's kind of. I think it is, because that's like why she starts hating him at the end.
Yeah, and then he's setting her up to get caught so he can capture the guy, and it's fucking gross. Like you literally just stop caring. I stopped caring for his character at all at that point. Like I was liking him until that. That was my breaking point. I'm like, well, now I just lost interest in this.
When he got the actual like active police involved too, I feel like they would have been like, "Hey, we can't use a kid as bait." Yeah. Like.
Oh, 100%.
Like it feels like it, and you know, I'm not like just going. I mean, I am just going off by their names, but the writers have very European names. There's umlauts and everything. One of the writers is from Poland. I believe the other one's probably from Germany, if I'm going off this name, Durenmatt, Switzerland. And so it seems like some Europeans watched American cop dramas and then wrote their own without doing any research about the actual like legal system, which is fine, I guess, but it makes for a very obnoxious and annoying movie.
Well, even if you suspend your belief there for a minute, he still didn't. He had the chocolates. She wore a red dress, but he didn't have enough evidence to even call them out like that. Maybe to get help with investigating more, but I don't know about calling a whole SWAT team without the proper evidence. I don't think.
Yeah, I think it would have been a better movie. It ends with the man who was to blame getting into a car accident where he's turned into a burnt chicken nugget. He's a pedophile.
Broomstick.
I do not feel bad for making fun of a burning victim when he's a pedophile. But yeah, he dies, and the whole like Jack Nicholson. I feel like it would have been more interesting if he sets up this whole thing and then because of it the girl dies. And that would have been way more interesting, granted probably harder to sell than what happened. But it's just frustrating when it's close to a good idea, but then it falls short.
So one thing before I get into the actual ending is another thing that kind of threw me off is seeing like these celebrities in here that would just show up for a scene. Kind of threw me out of it. I'm like, what the fuck is Helen Mirren doing here? And then she never pops up again. Like the characters that show up and then don't pop back in. It's like, okay, so did they have anything to do with future context, or is that just like them just being there? That threw me off. That annoyed me a little bit. But so I already got tired of that breaking point where they got together and then he's kind of using this little girl to get the guy. But the ending pissed me off so much. It felt pointless that I watched this movie.
Yeah.
And I was liking it for a good hour. That's the crazy part.
It was very unsatisfying and not in a good way. Some movies can be unsatisfying, but in a good way. This was unsatisfying in the worst way possible.
Like,
and
if
it was
the
not
context,
interesting in any way either.
Yeah, if the context of what happened to the pedo happened instead of just happening like it did, like, I don't know, maybe Jack Nicholson ran him off the road or something like that, but he never actually knew if it was him. So I don't, like, he never got the full evidence to know if it was him or not. I don't know.
Yeah.
But the SWAT team's just following this girl, and then they have to pull out because Jack Nicholson's being crazy, and then I don't know. Then it just literally cuts to the guy crashed and burning. And we have no idea who the guy was or anything like that. It was just him, and that was it. And that was so. I saw the burning car. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, it was so unsatisfying. That's probably my biggest problem with it, is how unsatisfying. Of course, the romantic subplot, which I thought was completely forced. And you know me with romances, especially when they're forced. But
it was just a setup for a character we never even got to see. So when we saw them burning in a car, it's like
you felt nothing.
What is there? Like
you felt nothing, and you didn't like Jack Nicholson's character by that point.
Yeah.
So you didn't care that he would live the rest of his life thinking that the guy was still out there.
There was better ways to get to that point, but they didn't. So
exactly.
It was just sad. Like I
And
was like,
another thing, I've never been an alcoholic. I don't think you have either. But you have been drunk.
Not yet.
I have not been drunk. You have been drunk. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think that hallucinations and kind of paranoia comes from being an alcoholic.
I mean, it could be there, but
hallucinations?
It depends how, like, if you get wasted all the time, like, I guess.
Yeah, maybe his brain was just like melting. But then they also didn't really like show him drinking that much too.
They didn't he had a couple beers. Like, he didn't have like a drinking problem. He had a couple. That's like literally the average person maybe has a couple beers. Besides, you. But that's
well, I mean if I me with soda. If I drank beer as much as I do soda, I'd be an alcoholic. But it's
that's the crazy thing is he only drank. He had a shot with like the girl's mother, but that was because she had just been like beaten. I don't even know if that was a shot. I think he poured a shot of beer. Yeah,
I remember someone. I feel like it's Aaron Eckhart or someone else mentioning that he's always been a drunk, and I'm just like, when was he ever a drunk?
He definitely called him a drunk clown at the end.
Yeah, and I was like, when was he ever drunk? Like, and then they also don't mention if he has some kind of mental illness. So it's just kind of like out of left field. And I'm looking at the 6.8 out of 10 on IMDb, and like, it's not a horrible film. Yeah. But I find it hard to believe that enough people like it for it to have a 6.8 out of 10. Like, if it were 5, I would understand. But 6.8 is kind of high for what I would expect from a film like this, and this does not hit it.
Yeah, I definitely don't know what the appeal is. Maybe because of Sean Penn. A lot of people like Sean Penn.
Yeah, I feel like this is a
The movie's rated R, so like I don't know why the drinking scenes weren't added if they wanted to, portray that he was a drunk.
Yeah.
The brutal like body scenes where they show like the girls like what's the word, mutilated, I guess.
Yeah.
Were the brief moments where they showed like a mutilated body. Those were well done, but it wasn't enough to like save from the rest of it. Like there was one part where he bursts into the church, like getting ready to blast this pastor, and like I was bad at it. I'm like, oh, let this be the dude, because they were setting it up, and then it was just like a, like a kind of, I guess, Well, he was like vision that like that's what he was preparing for, to shoot this dude down.
Yeah.
And like that scene was cool, but like then they took it away like immediately. Understandably, they were setting up a false suspect.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. This movie, I was liking it a decent amount, and then it pissed me off twice.
Yeah, I never really got into it, mainly because of the editing. Specifically, the editing following the kid on the snowmobile who finds the body. It cuts between him and Jack Nicholson going about his day. Yeah. And it's the most clunky editing I've ever seen.
The beginning it gave me like Wind River vibes. And I was liking that for a hot second.
Fun fact, I'm not a fan of Wind River, also because of the editing.
Oh.
But I do love the story of Wind River. I just think it's horribly edited, personally. Again, I'm not trying to knock anyone. I personally do not like the editing in it, but I know most people don't care, which is fine. But it bothered me, and the editing in this also bothered me. So that would make sense.
Yeah, I don't have too much more to say about it. I think I've said all the parts that I really care about. I think.
Yeah, same here. So that does it for a review for The Pledge. That brings us to the judgment. As always, it needs to be unanimous decision whether or not it goes on the KFR shelf with the likes of Apostle and Handmaiden. This was my movie this week, so that means I get to go first. I think it's very clear from everything I said. I probably was not as positive about this film as I probably could have been. I focused on the negatives this review, but I feel like my negatives were more strongly felt than my positives.
I was going to say, when the negatives kind of outweigh the positive, it's hard to, like, redeem that.
Great performances, even from, like, the cameo characters, where, like, you're just like, oh, this person's in it, and it takes you out of it. They're great performances. They're just so famous it takes you out of it.
Yeah. Especially since it's like it feels like a small town, fishing spot. So.
Yeah. But, honestly, even if it were just for the editing alone, I would say this doesn't go on the shelf, because I really hated the editing in this. It bothered the ever-living shit out of me. I'm so glad that we know, like, people no longer edit movies like that.
To I guess justify that I didn't care that much about the editing, I had it on the background. Obviously, I was paying attention to it, but not enough to pay attention to how bad the editing could have been.
Yeah.
So like, it's a good background movie, especially like if you're still paying attention to it. But I don't know. I liked this movie for the first hour. It was decent, like 2.5. I was ready to give it 2.5, depending on how the ending went, and the ending just sucked my ass. So
the ending's the worst part, honestly. Like, it's infuriating
between that and
how unsatisfying
them like
it is.
hooking up, I was like, "That's fucking no."
Weird. Yeah.
It's the ending. It ruined it for me. Like, I was willing to give it a 2.5. I don't think it would have made it on the shelf though, regardless. But still, I was like, "Gah."
Yeah, there's so much there that it could have been a great movie. It falls. It falls short. You ever see The Other Guys when Samuel L. Jackson and The Rock jump towards the hedges? Mm-hmm. It's that. It's that of a movie. It could have been a great action sequence, but then they're stupid and jump for the hedges off of a 20-story building.
Yep.
And then they still miss, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
They definitely miss.
So, yeah.
They hit the pavement.
That is how I feel. This is
and
Samuel
the bushes
L.
were like
Jackson.
across the street. They weren't even below them.
Yeah. So this is Samuel L. Jackson and Dwayne Johnson in The Other Guys. So The Pledge does not make it on the KFR shelf with the likes of Apostle and Handmaiden. That brings us to our next week's movie. Glenn, it is your turn to pick. What we watching?
So I had one ready, and then Hulu does. I think I rant this to you at least once every other month. Hulu annoys the fuck out of me. You'll have something in your watch list, and then it'll remain there, even though the app like takes it off of the app.
Yeah.
So then you're like, oh, I finally want to watch this movie. It's not there. Like at least Amazon lets you know that you have to still rent it now or whatever.
Yeah.
But I was gonna pick Hidalgo. Fucking Viggo Mortensen. I was fucking ready for it, riding horses and shit. But I saw you had not seen this, and I had been wanting to see this. I feel like you might have saw it, and you just didn't grade it. But who knows? We're about to see. Event Horizon.
I don't think I have seen it.
Holy shit.
This morning, TDRS picked up an automated navigation beacon broadcasting at 2-minute intervals in Neptune orbit.
This is incredible. It's the Event Horizon. She's come back.
Event Horizon is the culmination of a secret government project to create a spacecraft capable of faster-than-light flight. Ship doesn't really go faster than light. What it does is it creates a dimensional gateway that allows it to jump instantaneously from one point of the universe to another light years away.
Where's she been for the last 7 years, Doctor?
That's what we're here to find out.
After 7 years in deep space.
There were 18 people on board this ship when it disappeared. I want them all accounted for.
Opening outer door. It came back, abandoned.
Any crew? Negative. This place is a tomb.
But it didn't come back alone.
Captain Miller! I've got some problems here!
I hear good things about this movie, but it's got a score that's somehow below The Pledge. So this will be interesting, at least.
Yeah, I hear this is Paul W.S. Anderson's only good movie, so I'm interested in seeing it.
So, Event Horizon. A rescue crew investigates a spaceship that disappeared into a black hole and has now returned with someone or something new on board. Director Paul W.S. Anderson, written by Philip Eisner, stars Lawrence Fishburne, Sam Neill, Kathleen Quinlan, Jolie Richardson, Richard T. Jones, Jason Isaacs, Jack Noseworthy, Sean Pertwee, plenty of other people below them. Yeah. I heard good things. Literally, actually, like a week or two ago too. And luckily, since Hidalgo wasn't on the list, I saw this on Amazon. I was like, oh goddamn. Speaking of Amazon, this is on YouTube Primetime subscription. It is on Amazon, Paramount, Roku, and Philo. If you've got subscriptions with any of those, most likely you got Prime, so that's kind of the way to go.
And you could probably rent it as well.
Yeah, that too, you silly goose.
Yeah.
Event Horizon.
Yes. So Event Horizon is our film for next week. Thank you, everyone, for listening. As always, you can check out our website at www.keystonefilmreview.com. On Instagram, we're Keystone_film_review. Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube, Keystone Film Review. And on Letterboxd, I am Mike, KFR.
And I'm Glen, KFR.
And that will do it until next week when we events our horizon.
It's on that horizon.
We're gonna have events on our horizon. I believe Burning Man is an event that's on the horizon.
Coachella's coming up, I think. Yeah,
I think it's currently happening.
Oh shit!
I also do not care because I hate everything about Coachella. I don't know why I've been saying everything with that inflection lately.
Coachella,
which is just very matter of fact. But yes, goodbye, everybody.
Bye bye.